What is up, everybody? It is a very exciting week. We are back with another episode of Just Stories with BT. And this episode is extra exciting because obviously I have a guest on who has the same name as me. And so because of that, I already know it's going to be amazing. So welcome Brett Russo to the show.
Hello, although I'm a girl, there's not many girl Bretts out there.
You know what? That is true. I've never met one. I know of one, but haven't actually met her before. So you're the first one I've ever actually talked to. But the first thing that I recognized was that you had two T's in your name, which is very important to me. I don't know. Have you met many different Bretts?
I mean, a lot of 1T Bretts.
Really?
So
I'll tell you this. So this is facts, and I don't know why, and I don't want to offend anyone out there. So if you have a 1T, I'm sorry. Prove me wrong. But I've known like 5 Bretts in my life with 1T. And for whatever reason, I didn't like any of them, which is really weird because I'm one of those people that likes everybody. I get along with everyone. I like everybody, but it started in junior high, 7th grade. Like the one kid, I went to this little school, 50 kids. And there was one kid that was so annoying and just drove me nuts. And it was this 1T Brett. And so I think that stuck with me. And then the second one I met was in college, and same thing. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's so annoying. So anyways, that's the deal. So obviously you have 2 T's.
So. I got to make sure I don't ruin it for you. I don't want to ruin the streak. All right.
Yeah, this episode may never play, everybody. Just so we're clear. So hey, this is the way we start. I want the world to get to know you. So I'm going to do an introduction and then you'll tell me what I missed. Okay. And fill in the gaps just real quick. So that way everyone can get to know you a little bit. And then we'll get into your amazing book. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, world. Here we go. This is Brett Russo. So she was born in New Jersey. Awesome fact. She is a twin. Really cool. She grew up in Pottersville. And her childhood hobbies were singing and sports. Her first job was in a sunglass store down at the shore, which I'm assuming is Jersey Shore, right? So I have a whole image now going along with this story. In high school, she played field hockey. She did play. She sung. In fact, she was so good at singing, she even sang the national anthem at a New York Yankees game and at the New Jersey Devils games. After high school, she went to Bucknell University. Her first job out of college was as a sales rep for Capital Printing, where she would go on to become the director of sales and eventually now the CEO. Pretty amazing. Throughout that process, in 2015, she got married and then she wanted to have a family. And so she started the process of having a family. And that's where she ran into some struggles and eventually, thankfully, overcame them. Now has 2 beautiful kids. And so along that process, in 2020, released her first book, The Underwear in My Shoe, that is out now and became a best-selling book on Amazon. And then now here you are on Just Stories with BT podcast.
Wow, that's me in a nutshell.
There it is. So what did I miss? What do people have to know about Brett Russo?
Oh, I don't know. Well, I feel like I think people in my life are a little shocked when I wrote a book. I don't think half of them knew I even read. In fact, my dad, when I said, "Dad, do you believe I wrote a book?" He goes, "No, I thought you were an idiot." So that was a nice, support system I had where they would say, well, "I didn't even know you knew how to read," which I actually shocked myself. So, sometimes you got to do things in life that are outside the box,
Yes.
Shock people a little.
So what was it like singing the national anthem at Yankee Stadium?
Oh, well, we're huge Yankee people. We are huge fans, and I love to sing. And from a little girl on, I was always writing letters to Steinbrenner, always trying to sing at Yankee Stadium, which was impossible. And eventually I, knew someone who got me a tryout, and they let me sing a game, and it was a surreal experience. I mean, my father he wasn't able to even afford to go in to Yankee Stadium as a kid. And he would listen to the games outside. And here we were walking through the dugout and on the field.
Oh, that's awesome.
If you're a Yankee fan, I mean, it's magical. I mean, it's just like, it was insane. And we got to meet, Derek Jeter and Torrey and everyone. I mean, at the time, it was just all the superstars. It was great.
Oh, that's so cool.
And a typical big Italian family. I had like 70 members of my family there. And I mean, it was insane. We travel in packs. I barely go to the bathroom alone, I feel like.
Oh my God, that's awesome. And so this first job, was it at the Jersey Shore, your first job, sunglass shop?
Yeah. So I was, down at the beach in Long Beach Island and kind of went door to door looking for a job. And this place was the only one hiring. And that was it. I found myself selling sunglasses and down at the shore is amazing. And I actually learned a lot about sales through, because even though it was just a summer business, the owners took it very, very seriously and used to send us to sales classes. And I actually learned so much about sales through the store. It was unbelievable. So
That's
cool.
awesome. Yeah, I spent
Yeah.
we have a really cool office in Hoboken. And so this summer I spent a few weeks out there, which was great. So I was in New Jersey. We went down the shore a little bit. It was fun. I actually really like Hoboken, and I hadn't spent much
I
time
used to
there,
live
but
in Hoboken.
yeah, it
I
was
knew your
great.
business in Hoboken. It's great.
Coming from California where you got to drive everywhere, it was awesome. Like I had a rental car and I used it like once. It was parked and we walked everywhere, and yeah, it was so much fun.
Yeah,
So
that's the best part. It really is. Yeah.
yeah, so tell us, you know, we're kind of breezed past it, and whatnot, but tell us a little bit about what you do now, because I know you're the CEO of your company. And so what's that all about? Give us the quick version.
Quick version is Capital Printing is my family company. We do commercial print for, big pharmaceutical companies, financial companies, things like that. All the stuff in the mail that you get that you probably throw away. That's half the stuff we do. And when I got out of college, I didn't have a job. I was interviewing around, and I said, you know what, Dad, I'll come work with you for the summer just while I, interview. And that was it. I went, started selling with him, loved it, and never went to my interviews. And that was it. He taught me everything I know about selling. He was the kind of guy, never went to college. I think he barely graduated high school, grew up in Brooklyn. His father died when he was 17. And I really was able to watch him in action, where he was the kind of guy that would go into a sales meeting and never talk about business. People trusted him. They loved being around him and in his aura. And I feel like I learned everything I knew about it through him. And I loved it. I just wanted to be around him. I wanted to be around the business. And that was it. Here I am 22 years later. And my brother came in the business as well. And we're running it together. And it's been great. It really was. I mean, he was a guy that started from scratch, used to be a pressman, and went off on his own and built this company. And, now we're just trying to do it right,
Yeah. Yeah. My first job was actually working at my best friend growing up, who's still actually my best friend now. We both moved down to San Diego from Northern California, but his parents owned a printing company. So it was, brochures and posters, like whatever, anything printing. And so, and you'll probably appreciate this more than most. So we used to, when I was in junior high, on once a month on a Friday night, all of our friends would go to the print shop, to his parents' print shop. And this is back when they would do newsletters and stuff. There was this giant retirement community, and they would do the monthly newsletter, and it was like 30 pages. And back then they didn't have the machines that automatically collated all the stuff. They could print it all. So then they would do it where they'd had this huge, rectangle table and all the pages, and you had to go one by one and like slide it into the next. And have this little like gel stuff for your fingers, and you would like whip it around and just do this. I mean, 1,000 circles. And I remember they'd give us $20 and they would buy us round table pizza. And that was like, we were all, we were 12 or 13. We're like, this is the best. And we do that for years.
It's amazing with manufacturing. Like, so much about manufacturing is that, right? I mean, and you realize like how many touches it takes just to get a book out there, like a brochure or anything. To see a plant in action and how much goes into it is unbelievable. It really is.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I remember the owner was my best friend's dad. And so we were really close. And when I turned 16, I would turn 16 before his son or any of the other guys. And so he's like, hey, do you want to do some deliveries for me? I'm like, yeah. And we knew that where we delivered these big newsletters, it was like this retirement community. And there was this really cute girl that worked there. And we went to different high schools, but I knew she was there. And I was like, I'll volunteer. So they load the back of this pickup truck, and I just, 16, just got my license, and I'm like, I'll go deliver them. So I get in the truck and I look at it and I go, oh my gosh, it's a stick shift. I don't know how to drive a stick shift. But then I was so committed and I was too embarrassed to tell them I didn't know how to drive it. So I get out, I kind of know what I'm doing a little bit. And I'm trying to I get out of the parking lot, and the first street I go up to is on a hill. And then there's cars pull up behind me, and I'm dripping. I'm so panicked, because I'm like, I'm going to run into a car. So then I remember I had asked, my mom had told me, if you're in a stick, because she used to live by San Francisco, like pull the e-brake and then gas it and then, go. So I remember I like I put the e-brake on and I get the engine revved up and I let it go and I'm just fishtailing. So anyways, long story short is I go to this place. I get there somehow. It takes me like forever to get there. It's 20 minutes, maybe it's 10 minutes away and it takes me an hour because I don't know what I'm doing. I finally get there and this girl's there. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing. So I get the dolly out of the back. And you know how the dollies are like, they're slightly off center, you know, because you got to put the stuff on and wheel it. So she kind of comes out and is like, oh yeah, you need to take them around back. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I take the first big box. It's super heavy, you know, this huge thing of newsletters. And I drop it on the dolly and the dolly comes straight at me and hits me in the head and basically knocks me out. I fall back.
No.
Yeah, the mom has to come out. Like the daughter's mom comes, they put ice pack on me. I'm like so embarrassed. I'm like, I'll never do this again. It was like so traumatic, you know?
I thought you were gonna say, and then she ended up being my wife.
No, it ended up, I never went again. I was too embarrassed. So there you go.
And that was the end of your printing career.
Yeah, printing career was done. So tell me, you know, so tell us about the book, right? Because obviously this is a huge U-turn into what, you know, like you said, your career, you got this whole thing going over here. And then what happens? Kind of give us the backstory.
Well, here I was, you know, running a company, you know, life was good, right? I felt like I was healthy. I was, you know, just everything was kind of, I just met the man of my dreams, you know, later in life. I was 35 and that's it. You know, I never was a worrier. I never was super, you know, obsessed with having kids or any of that. You know, I wasn't stressed about it. So it's like, all right, no big deal. So we started to try to have a family. And, you know, after about a year of trying naturally, we said, all right, we got to, you know, go get some help. And here we were, you know, in the middle of an infertility clinic, you know, in the middle of IVF. And I was completely devastated. I mean, upended, it was never even on my radar screen that could be an issue because, you know, you have all these preconceived notions of why something would happen, you know, and I was you know, I was healthy. You know, I was an athlete. I never really there was just, I don't know, just these stupid things you think of that would matter, but they don't matter.
Yeah.
And I was lost. I mean, I'm a very positive person, you know, very, you know, motivated person. And this threw me for a loop. This threw me on my back. And I started writing it down just because it was helping me through it. And, you know, never thinking I would have an actual story to tell. And I did. And as I got deeper and deeper, you know, I kept writing. You know, and spoiler alert, when we did end up getting pregnant, I announced it on Facebook and I said, you know, the journey can be hard, kind of alluding to the point that, you know, we had some issues. And then I went to bed. The next morning I woke up and when I tell you hundreds of messages from people I knew, people I didn't know, I'm so alone. I'm going through this too. I don't know where to turn. And that moment I realized that I had to finish this book. And it became this passion project for me. And I think what took over was the point that when I went through it, I felt, you know, the dominant feeling was that I felt so alone. And I was so confused. I didn't know about the process. I didn't know about IVF. I didn't know what could happen. And I think if I knew the things that I knew now, then not that it's easier, but it does help you along. And you say, oh, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be feeling. This is confusing. This is upsetting. This is disappointing. And there's some really big feelings that happen. I don't think people quite understand it unless you go through it. And that was my goal, just to educate people about IVF and the emotional effects of it. And two, just be there for women and men out there that were going through it, because it is difficult and it's okay. And, you know, sometimes by making fun of yourself and laughing and, you know, and saying it how it is. I mean, the tagline is my journey through IVF unfiltered. It's definitely unfiltered. I mean, you know, my husband and I had many arguments about this thing, but like I told him, you know, unless it's real and raw and authentic, it's, you know, if we're not vulnerable, then it's not going to be something that people are going to get themselves out of. You know, they need to know what really goes on. And the response has been amazing. I mean, you know, the relationships I've made with total strangers through this, just being able to, you know, you in life, you go through something, the only way that you can make yourself say, this is why I went through this, is to help someone else going through it. And
Mhm.
that became a really big passion for me for this particular
Yeah.
topic, especially,
Yeah, no. And I think the thing that you're saying that resonates so much with me is, and we talked about this before we hopped on the podcast, is that, the reason that I love to hear people's stories is because, when you hear something firsthand from somebody, it really puts into context what it is, this happened, this is the impact or the effect it had on someone, versus reading some textbook or something about a process. I can imagine that going through this had to be like that, because you're probably researching, you're trying to figure it out, right? But then here you now became this, I would say, a source of, information and inspiration for people that are going through it in a way that they can't find by just, Googling or like looking at it. Cause I imagine that process is probably really daunting, right?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that, there's so many different variables with infertility. There's so many reasons why, there's so many scientific facts, and there's so many options. But the thing that they don't talk about is this crazy emotional journey that you go through, and it's ups and it's downs. And when you're down, you're really down. And I'm
Mhm.
not someone that gets down. And I was in a really dark, dark place, and I had nowhere to put those feelings except on paper, and I think I was inspired by the fact that maybe I could help someone else going through it. But, nobody, a huge thing that I learned through this process was, with anything, you truly don't know what it's like until you've gone through it. And it's so easy to tell someone, oh, don't worry, you'll be fine. Oh, it will happen. Stop stressing, or all these things. And, the correct thing to say is, listen, I don't know what you're going through. I've never been there, but I want to be there for you. Or, I don't know what that must have been like this morning, starting your day with, shots to your stomach, or, disappointing news, and it just opened my eyes to what anyone's dealing with. Right. I mean, how many times in a day whether it's someone's, I actually just lost my father recently through
Oh, sorry.
COVID. Yeah, I don't want to bring us down, but it's funny because so many times I would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, he's in a better place." Someone that lost someone, and I'm saying to myself, "Oh my God, the things I say, when unless you've been through it, then it's so clear what you should say." But in life, you just don't know what people are carrying, and
Yeah.
it's not easy all the time to know what to say.
Yeah. No, I
But
get it.
yeah.
Um, so give us the like short rundown for people who aren't familiar with the process. Like, what is the process? Like, what do you have to do to go through the treatments?
So basically, once you start, they usually have you do a series of IUIs, which is, I mean, I don't know. Hopefully, your listeners aren't sensitive ears. It's basically a turkey baster with with sperm that, they make you ovulate, and then they put the sperm up there. It's just kind of like a little bit more of a push than just regular trying
Yeah, yeah,
naturally.
yeah.
And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. For me, it didn't. For a lot of people, it didn't. Then you go to full blown IVF, and what that process is just um, they're removing eggs. They give you drugs to stimulate, instead of one egg a month. Your body stimulates, so you drop several eggs. And what they do is they retrieve the eggs, they fertilize them with the sperm, and then
Which
they
was
re
your husband's favorite part, right? To talk about.
Yes. Oh my God. He's such like an introvert. Like, I'm like an open book, and he
Yeah.
was mortified by this whole process. I'm like, it's okay. It's like 2020. You can talk about this stuff. Um, and that's the easy part, right? Seems pretty standard. What people don't tell you is that, for me, especially, as you get older, it's harder to retrieve eggs. So, I was thinking I was going to get like 20 or 30, and I got two. And the process, as you go along, you lose eggs along the way. So not all of them fertilize, not all of them pass genetic testing, not all of them mature. So you're losing eggs along the way, and that was the thing that killed me, because it's the ups and downs. Okay, we got 6 eggs, and now we only have one, and now it's those ups and downs that are the real emotional part of it.
Yeah.
And of course, the hormones. You're getting shots to the abdomen every day, and you're
Oh,
like
wow.
batshit crazy. I'll tell you that much. But
Yeah, I
yeah.
bet. And tell me more about you mentioned this feeling of being alone, right? So here you have this, you've got your husband, you've got your big family, you've got your career, but what is it that's making you feel that way?
The hardest thing for me was I have an incredible network of family and friends. I really do. The problem with IVF is that not a lot of people I knew went through it. And I was getting a lot of responses that were almost discounting how I felt. So here you are trying to have something that you feel like everyone has had so easily. You're looking on Facebook, who's pregnant, who's this, who's had multiple kids, and you're trying so desperately to have that and you can't.
Mhm.
And when you try to reach out to your normal people that help you cope with things, you're not getting the response that sits well because they don't know either. So they
Yeah.
almost discount it as if they know the answer, where, oh, you'll be fine, stop stressing. My friend adopted and then she got pregnant, and then all these crazy things that,
Yeah.
go on vacation, stop drinking, caffeine, like these crazy things that people say just to get kind of like make you feel better. But it is a big deal for when you're going through it and you want that and you want it so badly. I mean, this is, something you dream about your whole life, and you
Yeah.
can't, at that point, you have no control. You really
Yeah.
don't. It's really science at that point, and your body and what, you're kind of, everything's waiting on results. And I think that's where you feel alone, because everyone else moves on with their lives and they're having children and they think they understand, but it's a hard thing to go through mentally.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I resonate, and I don't want to say I understand what you're feeling. That would be a little bit, but it's funny because I'm a single dad, and I know years ago when I was going through a separation, all of my closest friends and are all married, which is great. Stoked for them, married family, and our kids are all friends or whatever. But the difficult part of that was, I didn't have anybody in my close circle that actually had gone through that and was struggling with it. So to your point, people would say all these things trying to be helpful. And I'm like, that's not helpful. You know what would be helpful? Come over on a weekend and do dishes one time. So you know what I mean? Like that's actually
Yeah.
what I need. Like I need a help, like physical help right now, to get through this, not this, and so those things happen. And to your point, it's it's coming from the right place of like, hey, they want to help, but at the same time, hey, that's actually not helping. And I think that's probably why you had such a huge response to your first post on Facebook and eventually the book, because I think that's probably very common in your world, in that world, right? Of like, hey, there's all these people going through this. They feel alone. They don't know what to do. Oh, here's someone who actually is going through it. Here's something I can like relate to or pull something from, which makes sense, as I do the same thing in my world, like I was like, here's the advice I would like, not
Yeah.
someone who hasn't been through it, because it's just not that helpful.
Oh, totally. I mean, that's my point exactly. Like, I think, in life, to your point, like, you, unless you're gone through it, you don't know exactly what people need or what they're going through. And it's funny because so much of the response from the book has been people like, I had no idea. That people that had kids easily, no problem. They said, I had no idea. And it really helped them help the women in their lives. Like, obviously I had a lot of people that are going through it that read the book, but I've had such a response of people. My sister's going through it. Thank you so much. I have a better understanding of how I can be there for her. And that's really important too. I mean, that's just, and IVF is just one of those things. It's weird. Like, women talk about so much, but they're still so embarrassed and ashamed when they're talking about this particular topic. And the one thing I say, and if there's anyone out there, the first thing you have to know early on, and I wish I realized this early on, it's not your fault. And you carry that guilt and you carry that with you. And there's enough going on, enough stress that you gotta like forgive yourself. You didn't do anything to deserve this, to create this. It's not like, oh, I smoked so cigarettes in college and this is why I'm, infertile, and
Yeah.
all these things that go through your mind. It's who I am.
No, that's
But
good. It's like everyone needs that. Have you seen Good Will Hunting?
yeah,
That scene it like where it's like, Matt Damon and he's like his, therapist or whatever, Robin Williams is telling him like, it's not your fault. So then he keeps doing it over and over again. And then finally he just like, he like loses it, but it was like that breakthrough of like, dude, you're a lot of these things you're doing, it's because of this other thing. It's not you, And I think that's really good advice to hear, because I would imagine that, especially the pressure around, I think I read something in one of your bios that said, part of the pressure was that all your friends on Facebook or whatever have families and all this stuff. And so now you're feeling less than because you're comparing yourself to X, when X, the reality is it should never be done, but that's just how we do it, especially with social media. It's one of the downsides. I have a son who just turned 13, and it's like monitoring and trying to like navigate this social media world is so difficult, because we talk all the time about what's real and what's not real, and what trying to get away from the traps of comparing yourself to what you see. And at a young age, it's difficult, and I think it keeps getting more difficult. People don't realize.
Well, it's funny when you're going through something like that, or anything hard, you're looking at Facebook and everyone, is looking for their perfect picture and all that. And that's a big reason why I wrote this book, because I truly in my heart believe that we are the best when we come together in our weakest moments. And I feel like it shows such confidence. And, when you can come to someone at your weakest and say, this is me, like I'll compare it to, I dropped my kid off last week at preschool for the first time. And I was the kid, the mother that got the call to pick up their kid. Like everyone else is crying, but mine was like so intense that I had to pick them up. And here I am watching everybody drop off their kids, no problem, right? So I wrote mine. I was like, well, that exact story. And so many people wrote me on the side, oh my God, that was me too. But I didn't, and it's like, people are so afraid. And that was so much more powerful than, oh, here's my perfect kid went to school, because life isn't perfect. And I feel like when we can all bond together, it's like, that's when you feel like great and you feel amped up and you feel like, yeah, I can do this. That's better. Like, I love the Christmas card. Everyone's like, perfect. Like, send me the one where they were one of the outtakes where everyone's screaming, because that's funny. That's what really goes on. Right. I mean, anyone that has kids know that, like, that's what's really going on. And
no, absolutely.
You can't, I don't know. I hate that. That's tough on Facebook, especially when you're going through IVF, because everyone, has I think I even said in the book, like their beautiful picture with, next to the barn and all this stuff. And it's hard and then you get the questions, when are you gonna have kids? As if like, you're not trying. And those are rough, with the baby showers and all that.
Yeah.
But
no, I love that. And I think, we are entering, in my mind, we're entering the era of, making sure that, I think we're entering an era of being transparent, and I think our kids are going to grow up in a world where that becomes the premium. Is this real? Is this not? And figuring that out, especially with AI and all these things you can do to change your looks and these things and whatever. I mean, I think the reason why stories took over just normal posts on Instagram is because at least it seems more real, like, hey, this was just a person walking around with their camera. I can kind of trust this a little bit, whereas the posts, I don't know, I can't trust that. I mean, was it even a sunset? Like, who knows, and so I think people are looking for that. And it's funny because I have a strategy when people are interviewing, I call it the 8 Mile theory. And so it's basically like, I love the movie 8 Mile with Eminem. Don't know if you ever saw it, but great movie. And he has this part that's like, the best part of the movie, where he's doing the rap at the end in the rap battle. And he starts off by saying all the things that he thinks the guy's going to make fun of him for. His friend got shot. He lives in a trailer with mom, all this stuff. And then he puts the mic down and the guy's got nothing to say. And I was giving advice to some people around that were doing some interviews. And I said, hey, my strategy for you is like, tell the interviewers whatever you think they're going to be worried about you as a candidate, get it out. Like maybe you don't have a ton of experience, or maybe you didn't go to the school, or whatever it is. Call it out right off the bat. I didn't do this. I didn't do this. Then you can go ahead and say, this is why that's not an issue. Because most people in interviews, they try to avoid anything negative. And they try to, just like a Facebook picture, try to say like, I'm this perfect thing, and the reality is nobody is. And so when someone comes and tries to interview with me and they act that way, I'm like, that's a red flag for me, because no one's perfect. Like, what's the deal? What can you get better at? Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. My brother and I talk about this all the time, because we go into these meetings. I'm not a reader, which is hysterical. I wrote a book. I'm not a reader. I'm not like a math person, but here I am, like CEO of this company, right? And I go in, my brother's my CFO. We go into these companies and he always says to me, he goes, you are totally comfortable with what you don't know. Like, aren't you like nervous when you go into these things and they're like, we'll go into these big accounting meetings and they're talking about things. And I always say to them, I said, they don't expect that of me. If I could say, right, like, I'm confident in what I'm good at and I'm confident of what I'm not good at. And I say, listen, I have someone who is better than this at me, and I'm going to trust that. And, you don't have to be this perfect, you don't have to be the perfect person where you can do everything. If you can if you know that, that's even better. You surround yourself with people that you trust, and that, and you only are who you are. Like, be confident in what you don't know too. Be like, oh yeah, I'm not like, I would say, oh, that's not my role. If we're talking too much about numbers. Because at the end of the day, I look at my brother and I can't do what he does and he can't do what I do. And that's what makes us a magical team. And we were sitting there trying to compete to be the one person to do everything. We wouldn't have had the success we had, Yeah.
No, 100%. My first major CEO I ever worked with, this guy, Dale Carlson, who's like the greatest guy ever. But that was his tagline was, I hire really good people, treat them amazing, and literally get out of their way, and he was unbelievable at real estate and advertising. So here he eventually had this $500 million company that he sold. But even to the last day, it's like he did those two things, and everything else he just handed off, which, imagine when you start a company, it's got to be hard, because you're like, oh, I used to do this and this and this, and I can do this and this. But he's like, no, you got to let it go. And then eventually have that understanding that, oh yeah, I'm not the best at all these things. So if I really want to be good for this company, I got to step aside in this area and let people do their thing, which isn't always easy for CEOs, because typically they're successful. So they did it on their own in the beginning, and then at some point they have to hand off. And I've been around ones where they can't let it go. And it's so difficult, because you're just like, oh my gosh, this is painful.
Yeah. Especially a certain level, you get to a point where it's like, you just can't do it all. And you have to, it's like your baby, but you do have to, let people do what they're good at, let them rise. Let's, let them do what they were trained to do,
Yep. So last two questions. So first one is, what was the feeling like when the first time you got a copy of your book?
Oh, I have to tell you, it was probably one of the best moments of my life, but without wedding, babies and all that. But
yeah.
I'll never forget. It came way earlier than I thought. And it came to the door. There was a big box. I'm like, what is this? Because, of course I'm on Amazon. It's as if like it's Christmas every day at our house. And I opened the box and my heart just stopped. I couldn't believe I was looking at it. Because, this was something that I never knew about, writing books, the whole thing. This was a brand new kind of industry to learn about and everything. And it was definitely outside my comfort zone, big time. And I think that that's what made me the most proud of this accomplishment, because it wasn't something that came easy for me. It was something that I had to stick with. It took years. It took a lot of detail. It took a lot of thinking and reworking and editing. And to hold it in my hand, it was like, not only was I proud of the journey, the actual IVF journey, I was also proud of the fact that I was able to, write this book and hold it in my hand. And, anyone out there who has that project that's kind of like in your brain, like, should I do it? Should I not? Just start. Like, that's all I can say is start. Like, for me, I just started writing, and you have to remind yourself and push yourself, just keep going. And it feels so good. I mean, really, there's been so many accomplishments, like even with our business and things like that. But this particular one I was most proud of, because it was a journey. It was a grind, and I'm just so proud of it. I'm so proud that it's able to help so many people. I'm still getting messages every day from women that I don't even know. Thank you so much. I feel like you're living my life. I couldn't put it into words. You're giving me hope. That is like, for me, like, I get to go to bed knowing that my hard journey turned into something positive for someone else. And how great is that? Like, you talk in life, what's your why, right? Who would have thought it would have been this? Maybe this is the why, that we went through that to help other people. It sounds cheesy, but it's so important to come together in those moments. You realize like how life-changing it is for someone that's in the middle of their journey, Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I love that, because you never know, you don't know what's happening. And here like you said, here you were at 35, like thinking, oh, like my life is probably around this successful career and this family, and it turns into this thing. I have a friend who was a professional football player, and he won a Super Bowl, and I would have assumed that's his life and that's his legacy or whatever. But turns out he had sleep apnea and was like super unhealthy because he couldn't sleep, and then ends up figuring out, oh, I need this machine, and then becomes this like crazy ambassador for sleep apnea all over the world. Like that's now his cause. And that's the thing that he'll be known for probably, is this thing. And you're like, oh, and that happened at 35 or 40. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you just don't know, and I think there's probably a lot of people that have opportunities to embrace things like that, and they don't, or they pass, or they don't let people know about it. And I think that's the important part too, I'm getting from your story too, is it's like, hey, this came about because you were transparent and vulnerable enough to get it out there and let people in. And then that response came back is like, oh, we need this, right? And then you double down, which is awesome. So tell everybody, if someone wants to learn more about it, get the book. So how do they look you up? How do they do it? What's the easiest way?
The easiest way is Amazon. It's called The Underwear in My Shoe. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's B Russo. And that's probably the best way to just follow information about the book and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. I try to respond to everyone at least as much as I can. So if you're going through anything, and please reach out. I'd love to be there for you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This was great. And I think that at the end of the day, I'll do everything I can to get your story out to other people that may not have seen it, because I think, like you said, there's millions of people going through this, and, not a ton of places to go for this kind of story. So I love it. So I'll do my best and my part. And then next time I'm in Hoboken, I'm going to look you up. We're going to figure it out. Do a coffee or something.
Perfect.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you
Brett.
so much. You're doing great things.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
All right.